Hello, welcome to My Sister's Keeper. My name's Natalie. I'm 32 weeks pregnant and I'm here to talk to you about my pregnancy journey. I'm going to talk to you about my experiences through my first, second and third trimester. I've just come into my third trimester. I'll talk to you about my diet and what I've been eating. I'm vegan, so you deal with a lot of questions about where do you get your calcium, where do you get your protein, how do you make sure that baby's growing nice and healthy and taking care of yourself. So I'll talk to you about the things that I've done throughout my pregnancy to help me through those experiences, and just answering people about what you're doing, and the health professionals, because obviously throughout the experience you're seeing a lot of midwives and doctors and just dealing with those things. So yeah, we'll talk to you about all my experience, even preparation just before, which is also key about your health throughout your pregnancy as well. So let's jump straight in. Okay, so my pregnancy journey in terms of my first, second and third trimester. I think before I get into that, one of the most important things is about thinking about your health before you get pregnant. So whether you are actively trying or you are in a situation where you can, i.e. you're married and these things happen. Your health before pregnancy really affects how you are going to be throughout the pregnancy. So generally we ought to be looking after ourselves a lot better than I think most of the time we are. So that's not only just about your nutrition, but about your physical activity and your movement and your environment as well. So for me, before I got pregnant, found out that I was pregnant, I went through a cleanse. So it wasn't particularly because I was trying to get pregnant or anything like that, but I think it's always very good to give your body that experience of just kind of cleansing out toxins, etc., that has been in your body throughout the years. If you're moving on to a different type of lifestyle, whether you're moving from meat-based diet or going into a plant-based diet, or just trying to take care of yourself properly, you find that over the years we don't always practice the best things, and so we've built up a lot of toxins, a lot of bad habits that we need to just deal with in our body. And I think I got pregnant in February of this year, so the ending of 2013, I just decided I wanted to take my body in hand and just give my body a good boost, as I felt the need for a cleanse. I've been vegan vegetarian for about about 7 years now. You don't count it, time just kind of flies by, but it's always good just to kind of go through that cleanse situation, because I wasn't very well for the last bit, particularly in the winter. You are bombarded with loads of microbes and the rest of it, and I work inner city London, so coughing on trains and recycled air in the office and all that stuff that we're battling with, we need to make sure our body is in the best condition in order to deal with that. So I did a cleanse just to kind of give my body a boost. So I'm just putting loads of different vitamins in, loads of different nutrients in. I think we'll probably do a video about how to do healthy cleanses depending upon what you're trying to do. There's cleanses to balance out your hormones, there's cleanses to cleanse out your gut, there's cleanses to cleanse out your lungs, to boost your immunity. And so I did that, not all of those things, but I was really focusing on boosting my immunity, putting loads of great vitamins, minerals, foods into my body. I concentrated on my gut flora and the rest of that. So I kind of came into 2014 feeling really well. I started juicing a lot, so having fresh juices that I made from home with vegetables, fruit and vegetables that I got from a farm, or if you can't do that, I got some from supermarket. So I was just putting really good things into my body, and I think what that did is once your body brings itself into a balanced position, it naturally probably becomes a lot more fertile, and it's a good hosting place for your baby. So it's really very important to kind of think about what is the health of your body, what is the health of yourself before you get pregnant, because a lot of the things that you might battle with, you may potentially pass that on to your baby, or you might have a more difficult pregnancy if you haven't kind of addressed those things before. So that's kind of one of the things I wanted to mention, that you just make sure if you are thinking about getting pregnant, or you are married, or these things can happen, or just generally, it's really very important to make sure we're looking after our health, and that we've got a clear mind, strong body for whatever life might throw us, in our journey, etc. Okay, so my pregnancy journey, when I got pregnant, most people, first trimester is very, very tough because your body is doing so much work. This baby, within the first few weeks, the major organs are being formed. So it's spine, spinal cord, nervous system is being formed, then the heart, then the brain. So your body is doing a lot of work. Not only is it taking care of you, but it's trying to supply the fetus, not fetus at this point, but the baby, the embryo, with as much nutrients it needs in order to form all these major organs, so that it can become a functioning human being life. So a lot of people experience, whether it be nausea or whether it be morning sickness, tiredness is one of the major things that most people go through within their first trimester. Now I didn't, again, I think because I had that preparation before, I was in a very good place physically before, I didn't really suffer very much from morning sickness. I had a little bit of nausea, and I'll tell you how I dealt with that when we talk about my diet and the things that I did. But I didn't really have a lot of morning sickness, touch of nausea. You find that your taste buds begin to change, your sense of smell elevates, and I got very tired, not to the point where I didn't feel like I could do anything, but I was like falling asleep at 7 o'clock, and I don't fall asleep at 7 o'clock. The train journeys home, I could not keep my eyes open, and that's just because my body was doing that much more work. So it's really, really important to try and make sure that you're getting as much rest as you possibly can, trying to get to bed, at a decent time, getting the help that you need from your husband, family members, whoever you're living with, that you're not taking on too much, and you're listening to what your body needs, which is rest and the right nutrients, putting the right things in your body so you can keep up the energy levels and do the things that you need to do, because unfortunately we can't lay in bed for 3 months, and you need to keep active, because the more active you are, or you try to be throughout your pregnancy, it's going to be a lot easier for you when you have to think about labor and the days going forward. So my first trimester was actually pretty easy. I didn't really have many major symptoms that like I've mentioned before, that most people have, and again, that's all because of preparation before. So it just kind of continues to highlight how important it is to try and be as healthy as you can be prior to being pregnant, not just because you're trying to be pregnant, but it's just because it's just the best way for you. I think it's more tiring, and life is a lot more depressing if you're constantly having to battle colds, sicknesses, and all the rest of it. If you're feeling great and you're healthy and you're strong, you can cope with all the different things that life will throw at you. So I think that's one of the reasons why my first trimester wasn't as tough as some women find it to be. I think it's also important just to keep hydrated, try and put in the foods that are going to give you a lot more energy, to be able to keep going. Like I said, take the rest that you need. I took the rest that I needed, going to bed earlier, adjusting the things you're doing throughout that time. You can't operate at your normal pace. Some people can, and that's fine, but if you just have to say I can't do that, and that's fine. Just adjust with what your body needs, because at that particular time it's so important that all the energy and everything goes towards your baby, and making sure that it's forming. Particularly the first 12 weeks is so important, because if there's going to be any physical issues with the baby, or any organ issues with the baby, that happens during that first trimester. So it's so important to make sure that you're getting all the right nutrients and vitamins and all the rest of that in for your baby during that time. So yeah, so like I said, my first trimester was relatively easy, apart from just the tiredness and the rest of that. But like I said, I coped with it, and we'll talk about the different foods that I ate and how that helped throughout each trimester. My second trimester was, most people say that kind of tiredness, and if you are suffering from nausea, you should get over that, after 12 weeks. That doesn't always happen. Everybody, every woman is different. Everyone's pregnancy is different. And for me, that tiredness kind of continued more into kind of week 14, week 15, week 16. I was still feeling like, when am I going to get my energy, like my full energy back? But eventually, little by little, it all came back. And my second trimester, it was pretty much, and I don't want to make it sound like it was easy, but it kind of was. It was like a breeze. My bump was forming, and my energy levels was picking back up. I was working, and I'm still working full time, so I didn't have any major issues. In the UK, throughout your first and second trimester, that's when you're going to have two of the major tests and scans. So at my 12-week scan, you might be quite anxious about that, hoping everything will be okay. I'd say what's really also important, more than what you're doing physically, is what you're doing spiritually. No matter what foods we put into our body, no matter what supplements we take, it's only really God that makes that puts the power, I guess, in anything that we put into our bodies to do what it's supposed to do. So for me, throughout, and even now and forever, throughout the experience, it's really important to pray, because your mindset, we don't understand how powerful our mind is to how our body relates to us. So if you're stressed, if you're anxious, if you're depressed, all of these things, they will have a physical effect on you and your baby, and your experience throughout your pregnancy. So for me, prayer's been key throughout the whole experience, and asking the Lord to direct me in the things to do, because it is a learning experience. We don't start off with knowing everything that we need to do and understanding everything that the body needs, but God knows the body. God knows its structure. It knows He knows how we can best take care of ourselves. So praying, asking for direction and guidance, and He is faithful to hear our prayers. And in my experience, God has been faithful to hear my prayers throughout this entire experience. That some of the things that I have battled with prior to getting pregnant, in terms of sometimes being vegan, iron levels is one of the things that come up. How do you maintain your iron levels? And I've worked very hard to try and do that, but throughout my pregnancy, my iron levels have been completely stable, and it's been enough for me and the baby. Now that I could have tried in my own strength to do that for years, but in surrendering and asking Lord, Lord, please just direct me. What do I do? He's helped me. He's He's guided me in the things that I've needed to do, and my iron levels have been completely stable throughout the entire pregnancy, and that's nothing of myself, and that's good. And I think that's one of the key lessons that you learn when you are pregnant, because there is nothing that you can't physically reach into your body and make this child form. Your baby starts out the size of a sesame seed, and that is tiny, and now my baby's the size of a winter squash. At the 20-week scan, the heart was functioning with the 4 chambers, the brain was completely formed. We could see all the major organs. Baby was moving around, sucking her thumb, all of these things. And that's just how amazing God's creative power is. But I don't have the power to make that happen. I have to trust in God, and I have to trust and be obedient to what He's asking me to do. And then if we do that, then God does for us what we cannot do for ourselves. And that's exactly the things that I've learned in pregnancy, that the only thing I can do is be obedient to what He's revealing to me, and by faith, knowing that by my obedience and the things that He's telling me to do, then baby's getting what she needs to grow, and he's faithful, because of, I can see little fingers, I can see little toes, I can see and I can feel her moving around, and there's nothing I could have physically done to make that happen. It's all about trust and allowing God to do the things that I cannot do, and being obedient to the things that I can do. So that's really key throughout having a if I can say, a successful pregnancy and a successful experience, and not being anxious over anything, but in all things, in prayer and supplication, present that to the Lord. So when you're facing like your first 12-week scan and your 20-week scan, it can be quite anxious, because you don't know, throughout the first two trimesters or so, you're not feeling the baby move, so you don't quite know, has the heart formed, has the brain formed, is everything okay? But you all you can do is present that to God and ask Him to take care of this child that He has given you, the gift that He has given you, and He will tell you how to best take care of that gift. So with anxiety and worry, and there's so many different things that can go wrong in things that don't necessarily work out the way we would hope it would work out in our pregnancy. You can't be anxious about that. You can't be stressed or worried about that, because that's not going to help your body. When you become stressed and you become anxious, that what physically happens to the body is it becomes more acidic. If the body's more acidic, you are then susceptible to being sick and the rest of it. But God promises to give you peace and rest and hope and faith, and those things are what make a successful pregnancy, as well as the rest of the things that we can take. So if I step all the way back, that's key. That's number one. Throughout the entire experience, first, second, third trimester, labor, you're gonna need a whole load of faith to get through each step, and God promises to give you that. So going into my second trimester, again, it was a really good experience for me. You start to feel your baby move. You start to, because certain things have been formed, so you start to communicate with your baby, develop a relationship with your baby, get to know little habits. You feel that first flutter in your tummy, and you know that there's life there, and that this responsibility is coming. What you will face is a few blood tests, just to make sure that your levels are correct. And again, thankfully for me, all my my blood count was fine, my iron levels were fine, all my mineral levels were fine. If you're from Afro-Caribbean, African background, you will then have additional tests for sickle cell, thalassemia, I think that's the name, I never pronounced correctly. And these are just general ones that they check to see if you and your husband have dominant genes that could create that in your child. So you'll go through all of those experiences, and then having your first scan and seeing your baby for the first time, and the second scan, which is more of a physical check to see how your baby's doing, and then you get to, if you want, know the sex of your baby. So so the first and second trimester is just very, very important to make sure that you're getting the right things in your body, and looking after yourself and the baby. And for me, again, it seemed to kind of just seamlessly go through. Coming into my second trimester, you are feeling more and more tired, and you are feeling there's different experiences you go through. So as your uterus is expanding, it can be quite painful, because you feel certain strains and pulls and the rest of it, but that's natural. The body's just getting itself prepared for giving more space for your baby. The uterus is getting prepared as it's getting ready for birth and labor and all the rest of it. So I'm starting to experience that now. There's different things that I'm now doing more in my third trimester than I did in my first and second trimester, just to get more prepared for that. So again, I'll jump into what I've been doing in terms of my diet throughout my pregnancy, and how I think that's contributed to me having a relatively easy and successful experience so far. My energy levels have kind of remained the same. I've been completely active. I haven't had any major sicknesses. What I would say I did experience was some people have experiences of high blood pressure. I had an experience of low blood pressure, where that can cause a feeling of vertigo, so like the room spinning around. And I had that coming into the last stages of my second trimester. Now, that was more so because of where the baby was lying. She was lying on my aorta, and what that does is that interrupts the blood flow through the body, and that causes that vertigo experience. There isn't so much anything physically you can do in terms of taking anything to do that other than encouraging your baby to move, and that's kind of what I did. And just hydration, drinking a lot of water, and I found that after a couple of weeks, when I went in for my next check with my midwife, my blood pressure had picked up and stabilized. So it's I think the foundation is prayer. On top of that is a great diet. On top of that is trying to stay active throughout your pregnancy, and then the rest of it kind of just all falls in place. So in the second and third trimester of pregnancy, majority of the baby's organs and everything is already formed, as well as its ability to hear and respond to your voice, recognizing your voice and your husband's voice and family and friends who are around. So the third thing is really important, is about communicating, talking to your baby. I talk to my baby a lot. I desire for our baby to get used to what our home atmosphere is like, and get used to routine. Obviously, I know it takes a long, once the baby's born, you establish a routine, but it's so important to communicate with your baby prior to it making its entrance into the world. So it's really good to read to your baby. I do morning devotion, evening devotions with my baby. We sing together. I talk to my baby. My husband spends time talking to her, so that she gets familiar with our voices, familiar with singing, familiar with our environment. So I don't, because you will find that, I've had experience. If I'm on a train and a fast train like zooms past, she'll hear that and she'll jolt. So just be very careful about your environment, because they are very, very sensitive. At this stage now, at 32 weeks, all her 5 senses are engaged. So I feel her now kicking and moving around. She's sensitive to light, or your baby will be sensitive to light, depending upon your environment. They can hear, the things that you hear in the environment you're in. So it's just like, if you want to protect your baby and you want to nurture your baby in the right environment, that doesn't just begin at birth, it begins now. So being very careful about, the environments that you put yourself in, the conversations that you have, the things that you're watching, all of these things, they begin now. So I'm quite conscious about my environment, conscious about the conversations I'm having, conscious about reading to her. I want her to love the scriptures and love the story of Jesus. So I'm reading to her Christ Our Savior, which is a wonderful book. It's like a children's version of Desire of Ages, but it's shorter chapters, so it's like we're doing little devotions. So she starts to learn about that now, so when she comes into the world, it's something that she's familiar with. And I get that from when you read about John the Baptist, and him leaping in his mother's tummy when Mary came with Christ in her stomach. So our children are the babies are they respond to our environments, they respond to the different things that we're around, and that's taught to us about in the Bible, but it's scientifically proven as well. So it's really important to kind of read to your baby now and just establish that bond. So once they come, they already are aware of the environments that they want to be in, and you've controlled that from the very, very beginning. So that's also very important. Anything else? I think that's kind of the overview of my pregnancy journey so far. I've tried to cover as much as I can think of, and I've written notes down here so I don't forget anything. But in terms of like the physical, the practical stuff, I'll jump into that in part 2 of this video, where I'll talk more about what I've done and the things I've taken and eaten throughout my pregnancy. Have dealt with things like stretch marks, how to take care of your skin, physical activity, exercise, things like that. I'll deal with the vegan pregnancy and how can you possibly get enough protein. It's impossible. You must get protein from, you know, I don't know where, but I'll talk to you about that and how I've dealt with that. But if there's anything I've missed in terms of just the general overview of trying to have, you know, the best experience in your pregnancy you can possibly have and be as healthy as you can, in this section, please feel free to, you know, post your questions down in the comments below, and then I will come back and do a Q&A session and kind of answer those questions, the most popular questions that have come up. In terms of part 2, I'm going to do it very much from a UK perspective, because I've watched quite a few videos that's been posted on YouTube, and it's our American friends that have done it, and you know, I love all the advice that they give us, but we're not always able to get all the products that they have, or if we ship them over, you know, the cost of all of that is just, buying all the stuff you need to buy for your baby is just, yeah. So I will kind of tell you what you can get in the UK, what's easy accessible to you here, and for our American friends that can't get that stuff, well, I'll tell you the websites and you can you can have a look at that. So stay tuned for part 2, and I'll go into kind of the practical things of my pregnancy experience.